Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Deep Dive Podcast. Hope you are doing well and taking good care of yourself. We go beyond the headlines and uncover the truth behind real stories, real crimes, and real consequences. Let's move towards today's topic.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into a case that is just one of the most chilling and truly complex international manhunts in recent memory.
Yeah, it really is. It's a story that shattered a young woman's life, but then it also just exposed this shocking capacity for deception, for self-transformation in a killer.
We are talking about the 2007 murder of Lindsay Hawker by Tatsuya Ichihashi.
And this story is defined by its grotesque, almost calculated details. It goes so far beyond a standard true crime story. I mean, you have a body concealed in a bathtub that's disguised as a flower pot.
It's unbelievable.
It is. And then you have this multi-year effort by the suspect to literally cut, sew, and surgically change his own face to stay hit. It shocked two entire nations, Japan and England.
So our mission today is to really analyze the complete chronology here. We're going to be tracking Lindsay Hawker's, her hopeful arrival in Japan. We'll dissect the profile of Tatsuya Ichihashi, which is deeply, deeply disturbed. And then we'll document this incredible 2.5-year manhunt that was, it was fueled by a catastrophic police failure right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we'll take it all the way to the trial.
And what's so clear from the sources is this just brutal contrast, between how it all started and where it ended.
Right.
It began with what seemed like a harmless offer, an English lesson in a coffee shop, that one sort of normal moment. It gave way to a horrific act and then this unprecedented police chase that cost millions and really defined a generation of Japanese criminal investigation.
And we have some really detailed journalistic accounts that let us trace pretty much every significant moment. To that calculated nature of the suspect, right? Using these extreme measures to just erase himself.
Yes.
And you contrast that with the sheer tragedy of Lindsay's innocent intentions. That's what makes this case just stick in your mind. It's the depth of the desperation and the sheer audacity of the killer that we really, really need to analyze.
Right.
Okay, so to really grasp the profound loss at the heart of this, we have to establish who Lindsay Hawker was. What she was aiming for.
Yeah, that's the foundation.
She was born on December 30th, 1984, and grew up in Coventry, England. And by all accounts, she was just tremendously focused and successful.
Her academic record, it just speaks volumes. In 2006, she graduated from the University of Leeds with a first-class honors degree in biology.
And that's not just a passing grade.
No, not at all. That tells you this is someone who is intellectually disciplined, she's ambitious, and she is fundamentally successful at achieving her goals.
And that success, it translated into her personality. The sources are so consistent on this. They describe her as bright, nurturing, caring, just really popular. She was serious about her future. I mean, she had plans for a master's degree. But before all that, she felt this need to get a new perspective, to experience something totally different.
A calculated break, a year to work, travel, and, grow as a person before that next big commitment.
Exactly. And that desire, that's what led her straight to Japan.
Right. So in mid-2006, she finalizes the plan. She signs up with Nova, which at the time was Japan's largest private English school network.
So getting a job there was a pretty big deal.
Oh, it was a competitive, prestigious assignment.
Yeah.
She saw it as this perfect combination of a professional opportunity and, a huge adventure.
She lands in Tokyo in October 2006. At first, she's assigned to the Kaiwa district,
which is a really vibrant area. It was close to Akihabara, the electronics hub, and the more traditional Asakusa district. She was right in the heart of one of the most dynamic cities in the world.
And by all accounts, she was thriving. She was really embracing her new life.
But, like a lot of young professionals on a budget, she makes a very sensible financial choice. She decides to relocate a little bit east to the Chiba prefecture.
Right, where rent is cheaper.
Exactly. Rent and the cost of living were just significantly cheaper than central Tokyo.
Right.
She moves into an apartment there with 2 other teachers, builds a really strong group of friends.
And despite being halfway around the world, she was incredibly grounded.
Yeah.
She was in constant contact with her family, her friends, her boyfriend back in England. Phone calls, Skype, texts, all of it.
Yeah, she wasn't someone who would just disappear. She was supported, she was successful, and she was navigating this incredible experience abroad with, a lot of careful competence.
And that careful, calculated life she had built, it collides with this incredibly destructive presence about 6 months into her stay. This is March 2007. The first encounter happens at Chiba Station. Lindsay's just unlocking her bicycle. And that's when Tatsuya Ichihashi approaches her for the first time.
And his opening move, it seems designed to just immediately undermine her control of the situation. He comes up behind her and says, "You are my English teacher."
And she knew right away he wasn't.
She was sure of it. She was professional, methodical. She knew her students, so she tries to, politely disengage. But he was persistent. And this is where it shifts from just awkward to actively predatory.
Exactly. He just doesn't take the hint. He starts to stalk her. She gets on her bike, tries to cycle away through this, complex maze of Chiba's streets to lose him.
But he follows her.
He follows her. He starts jogging, and then he's running, keeping pace with her bicycle for the entire journey, right up until she gets to her apartment building. This wasn't passive. It was an intense physical pursuit.
And that persistence, that really gives you a crucial early insight into his character. So when they get to her home, he makes this proposal that, on the surface, sounds innocuous.
Private English lessons.
Right. In a cafe, paid generously, and Lindsay, at first, she just refuses, says her schedule is too busy.
But he pushes. He uses this unexpected emotional angle. He says he's incredibly thirsty from, chasing her all that way.
Right.
And then he asks for a glass of water inside her apartment, which, given the context, is a highly manipulative request.
And Lindsay, though she's hesitant, she complies. The sources seem to think her rationale was, strategic.
How?
It was likely an attempt to de-escalate this really uncomfortable situation, and more importantly, to regain some control. By letting him inside for a moment, she's signaling, "I have roommates."
So they can see his face, so she's not alone.
Exactly. It was a self-protection measure, but one that unfortunately just exposed her to him further.
So once he's inside, he makes the offer again, but he sweetens the deal. He raises the price to 3,500 yen an hour.
Which was about $32 at the time. A lot of money.
A good amount of money. And he emphasizes it would be strictly business. And this was the incentive that worked. Lindsay needed some extra cash, so she finally agreed to meet him for a lesson.
And then there's that last, really bizarre detail. The sketch.
Oh, yeah.
Before he leaves, he takes out a piece of scrap paper and just draws a portrait of her. A strange, personalized gesture. And he leaves that sketch with his name and his phone number.
It's so unsettling. What do you even make of that? Is it a calling card? Or some kind of, psychological need to possess an image of her?
It's hard to say for sure, but either way, it was just deeply, deeply weird.
Okay, so we have this unsettling stalker who's presenting himself as this keen, if awkward, language student. Let's dig into who he really was.
Right.
Tatsuya Ichihashi. He was 28 years old, living in Ichikawa in Chiba. And his family background, it was one of intense privilege and high expectations. His father was a respected medical doctor, his mother a professional dentist.
And this really creates the psychological backdrop for everything. He was fundamentally a failure to launch. He had tried to follow his father into medicine, which is a huge prestige career in Japan.
But he couldn't do it.
He failed the exams repeatedly. He eventually just settled for a degree in horticulture from Chiba University, and he graduated in 2005. But crucially, he made zero effort to find any meaningful work after that.
He was just living at home.
He was living entirely off a monthly allowance from his parents, about 100,000 yen, which, like we said, is around $920.
Which paints this picture of a reclusive, maybe rebellious loner. He has no professional direction, but he's completely cushioned by his family's money.
Exactly. And it's important to note the sources mention his past wasn't totally clean, even if he didn't have any formal convictions.
What do they say?
There is an allegation of a prior theft and injury, specifically that he had assaulted a woman during a robbery.
And nothing came of it.
Well, the sources claim his wealthy father intervened, paid the victim about 1,000,000 yen, which is around $10,000, for an out-of-court settlement, to suppress the incident and keep his son's record clean.
Wow, okay, so this is where we get this huge contradiction in his profile, and I think it's a critical point for us to analyze.
I agree.
Despite this social and professional stagnation, this total lack of direction, he was utterly obsessed with physical fitness.
Completely. He's at the gym regularly. He's cycling over 25 kilometers every single day. That's the discipline of an athlete. Or, maybe a soldier.
So how do you reconcile that? This directionless, financially dependent failure to launch with this intense, almost military-level discipline he applied to his body, and later to being a fugitive.
It suggests this huge, misdirected internal drive, someone who compensates for a total lack of external structure with this fierce internal control.
Which immediately makes you question that $35 hour lesson offer.
Right.
Was that a genuine attempt to learn English? Or was it just an expensive, financially irresponsible way to secure a planned, fatal encounter? Given his finances, it seems much more like a high-cost psychological maneuver.
The stage was set just a few days later, Saturday, March 24th, 2007. This was the day of their first and, well, their only lesson.
Lindsay contacted him, and they met at a local coffee shop. And there's CCTV footage of them.
There is, and it's noted that while she appears, outwardly relaxed, the footage also shows her making these clear physical steps backwards whenever he moved too close.
So that initial discomfort was still there.
It was absolutely still there. The lesson went on for over an hour, and it seemed to go well enough to maybe allay her most immediate fears. But at the end, that's when Tatsuya enacted his plan.
The excuse?
The excuse. He claimed he'd forgotten his wallet and offered this easy solution. I only live half a mile down the road. Why don't you just come by, grab your money, and you can be on your way?
And Lindsay accepted. This was the critical, tragic decision.
It was. She hadn't brought her bike that day, and she had to get to work later, so she took a taxi to his home. And crucially, she asked the driver to wait for her.
It shows her intention, right? This was meant to be a quick in-and-out transaction.
Exactly, a perfectly rational decision based on that expectation.
And the rapid escalation from concern to panic, it starts almost right away. The taxi driver waits a few minutes, but when she doesn't reappear, he just assumes she changed her mind or got a ride from him, and he drives away, forgets the whole thing.
And then Lindsay misses her work shift that afternoon. And even more concerning, she never returns to her apartment.
Her housemates, they're naturally alarmed. They call the police that night to report her missing. But here's the first major institutional failure.
The police just didn't take it seriously at first. They treated it as, a runaway or maybe a misunderstanding.
It was only after Monday, when she missed the second day of work, and her school called her parents in England, that the pressure really mounted and the search officially began.
And thankfully, the housemates could provide those vital clues. The name, the phone number, and that very strange sketch.
Which led the police right to his door. Around 5:40 p.m., 2 officers are dispatched to Tatsuya's home.
No one answers the door. But the neighbors are helpful. They let the officers peer over the balcony into his apartment.
So what do they see?
They see the lights are off, but they sense someone lurking inside. And then they see the most bizarre thing, the immediate red flag. The bathtub. The detachable bathtub had been moved from the bathroom out onto the balcony.
Which, in a tiny Japanese apartment, is just not normal.
Not normal at all. It immediately screams foul play or, an attempt at concealment.
So that hunch, the idea that Lindsay might be inside, it leads them to call for backup.
Right. 7 more officers arrive over the next couple of hours. So 3 hours after that initial call, you have 9 police officers outside Tatsuya's door, ready for a raid.
And this is the moment. The critical failure that would define the next 2.5 years of this investigation.
In an act of just complete surprise, Tatsuya opens his front door. He's holding a rucksack.
And in the chaos, he just storms past them. 9 officers.
9 officers. They were slow to react. They only managed to grab his rucksack, which just came off in their hands.
And he was gone.
He just slipped away instantly. The sources point to the building's layout, these narrow, confusing hallways, which let him get some distance. But compounding that error, the officers didn't have proper radio equipment. They had no coordinated communication.
So in a split second, Tatsuya Ichihashi vanished into the night, just moments before they were about to capture him.
And once he was gone, police entered the apartment, and the gruesome scene confirmed their absolute worst fears.
Lindsay Hawker's body was found buried inside that bathtub on the balcony.
The specifics of how he concealed her, it just speaks to this deeply disturbed but also chillingly methodical mind.
The tub was filled with a mix of sand and soil, covering her almost completely.
And the only thing visible was her right hand, just emerging slightly from the surface. She had been bound and gagged with plastic ties, with scarves, and the forensic evidence showed bruises all over her upper body, suggesting a really extended, brutal assault.
And the attempts to disguise the grave that elevates it from just disposal to something macabre. like theater.
Absolutely. The tub had a decomposing agent in it, probably quicklime, to speed up decomposition and destroy evidence. And on top of the soil, he had placed flower seeds.
To make it look like a flower bed.
Exactly, to make it look like a mundane, innocent flower bed on a balcony. This wasn't panic, this was detailed, premeditated concealment.
And adding to the horror, he had shaved all of Lindsay's hair off her head. That, combined with the discovery of several wigs in the apartment, just immediately fueled this intense public speculation.
The initial rumors were wild, right? That he was a cross-dresser, or even the more disturbing idea that he killed her to use her hair as a wig.
Regardless of the motive, that act of shaving her head was just a clear attempt to dehumanize her, to erase her.
Overnight, Tatsuya Ichihashi became the most wanted man in Japan.
Right. Police distributed thousands of wanted posters. His face was everywhere, but the initial efforts, they yielded almost nothing.
He had slipped past 9 trained officers, and now he had just vanished from a nation of millions. The sightings that did come in just quickly turned into dead ends.
And the police, they took that highly unusual step of releasing those photoshopped images of him wearing wigs.
Which sort of confirmed those initial morbid rumors, right? They were speculating he might be using drag to evade detection.
And as the weeks turned into months and then into years, the pain for Lindsay's family back in England, it just became relentless.
It's the grief, but it's compounded by this agonizing feeling that the killer had just gotten away with it. All because of that one inexplicable police failure.
And that distress led to this very published friction with Japanese law enforcement. The Hawker family felt, and you can understand why, that the investigation was becoming lazy and sloppy. This frustration drove Lindsay's parents to take these unprecedented, desperate measures. Months after her death, they flew to Japan to single-handedly keep the case in the public eye.
And there's one detail that just illustrates the extreme desperation of Lindsay's father, Bill Hawker.
The story with the Yakuza.
Yeah. He went into a bar, he sought out known members of the Japanese mafia, the Yakuza, and he essentially just asked for their help. He gave them 2 bottles of expensive whiskey and asked them to find his daughter's killer.
Which shows you how completely he had lost faith in the official system.
Totally. And the public scrutiny on the Japanese police was just intense. The media was all over it.
These really pointed questions kept coming up. How did 9 police officers let one unarmed man slip by? Why did it take them a month to question vital witnesses?
And the most embarrassing one was their main wanted poster, the one they sent out everywhere. Was it 7 years out of date?
Yeah. And these public arguments, they escalated dramatically, playing out in both the British and Japanese media. The pressure was immense. But Tatsuya just remained a ghost.
All the while, he was pulling off this monumental feat of evasion. His life on the run lasted over 2.5 years.
And it shows not just cunning, but incredible physical mobility. He traveled across almost all of Japan, from Aomori in the far north of the main island, all the way down to the southern islands of Okinawa.
And he used these extreme hiding tactics. He was living in, of all things, abandoned concrete bunkers on remote islands at times, just seeking places where human contact was almost impossible.
It's that same misdirected discipline we talked about. He was applying his internal structure to external survival.
Exactly. And during 2008 and 2009, he maintained a routine in Osaka, a huge port city, hundreds of miles from Tokyo.
Which offers perfect anonymity.
The perfect place to disappear. He lived in internet cafes, which is a common tactic for low-cost housing in Japan, and he worked on construction sites.
Grueling manual labor.
Incredibly grueling, but he was doing it for a very specific reason. He wasn't just working to survive, he was saving money exclusively for plastic surgery.
He knew his original face was too well known.
He knew. And he understood that to keep this fugitive life going, he would have to undergo a fundamental physical transformation.
And the sources detail this astonishing level of psychological commitment he had even before he could afford professional help.
It's chilling. He realized he needed to alter his face immediately, and his actions show this capacity for self-inflicted pain.
He started with simple things, right? He cut off his own moles, which are easily identifiable.
Yes, but then it escalated dramatically. He used scissors to cut off part of his lower lip. And maybe the most grotesque detail, he sewed a thread through his nose to physically change its shape. These were crude, dangerous acts of self-surgery, no anesthetic, no sterile conditions.
Just driven purely by this pathological need to not be found.
That level of pain tolerance, that psychological commitment, it's almost unimaginable. It tells you his fear of capture was just profound.
So by the summer of 2009, the authorities were at their wits' end. This manhunt was a huge international embarrassment.
They were desperate to break the case. So the National Police Agency, they make this huge gesture. They raise the cash reward for information from 1 million yen into 10 million yen.
About 100,000 US dollars.
Exactly, a clear signal of how serious this was. And alongside that reward, they released a critical new public statement.
What did it say?
They advised the public that they now believed he had undergone, or was trying to undergo, professional plastic surgery. They asked people not just to look for his old face, but for special identifications, features that might still resemble the original Tatsuya even after surgery.
And this is where his meticulous plan is undone by one foolish, critical blunder.
In October 2009, a plastic surgeon in Nagoya calls the police. He thinks he just operated on the fugitive.
And it was him.
It was him. And Ichihashi had been so focused on saving the money, he overlooked a simple risk. He had foolishly agreed to let the clinic take a before and after picture of his operation for their records.
That picture, that's what blew his cover.
Completely. It showed his new face, a reshaped nose, a new chin, and it was instantly shared with police and then released to the public. It confirmed their suspicion.
And the new image worked immediately.
Almost instantly. One of his colleagues from a construction site in Osaka recognized him from the new photos. Tatsuya knew his time in Osaka was over. He had to go back into extreme isolation.
So his plan was to flee to Okinawa, back to those abandoned concrete bunkers on the remote islands he'd used before.
Right. So on November 10th, 2009, he quietly makes his way to Osaka's ferry port. He's planning to board a ferry for a slow 3-day journey south. He was almost back to his safe zone.
But his luck finally ran out, just moments before he could get on that boat.
A vigilant port worker at the ferry terminal recognized his newly altered face from the photo and immediately told security.
Tatsuya was quickly confronted by officers. They just asked him for his name.
Yeah, and at that point, after 2.5 years of running, of self-mutilation, of constant stress, he just seemed to realize the game was over.
He surrendered immediately.
Yeah, he just confessed, yes, I am Tatsuya Ichihashi, and the manhunt was finally over.
Following his capture, the legal process began. It was layered. Initially, he was just charged with abandoning a body.
The immediate crime they could prove.
Exactly. Later, he was served 2 more warrants for rape and murder. And it took a painful 8 months for him to finally stand trial.
The trial started on July 4th, 2011, and the public focus was really on the sentence. Japan still has the death penalty, but it's usually reserved for multiple murderers. Ichihashi had no prior convictions.
So the legal arguments were complex. Did the premeditation and the concealment warrant the ultimate punishment?
Right. And during the trial, Tatsuya admitted to the facts. He said he enticed Lindsay to his apartment, raped her, and then strangled her. His defense focused on his motive for the killing itself.
What was his claim?
He claimed he feared neighbors would hear her scream during the assault and call the police. He was trying to frame the murder as a desperate, unplanned reaction to prevent his arrest, not the primary goal.
And that was key to avoiding the death penalty.
It was. The final sentence came down on July 21st, 2011. Tatsuya Ichihashi was sentenced to life imprisonment.
And this was despite the Hawker family specifically asking the court for the death penalty.
Yes, but the court declined. Their reasoning was based on 2 factors, really. First, he had no previous convictions, and second, at 32 years old, they felt there was still a theoretical chance for rehabilitation.
They chose to value the possibility of his reform over the magnitude of his crime.
Essentially, yes.
And the trial, it just brought this fresh wave of devastation for Lindsay's family. They had to relive every excruciating detail.
And they were exposed to new graphic images of Lindsay's body used as evidence. Images they later said they deeply regretted ever seeing. Just another layer of trauma.
After the sentence, her parents released this really powerful statement. They acknowledged the long wait for justice and affirmed that Lindsay had loved Japan. They said, "You have not let her down," speaking to the Japanese people.
But their message to Ichihashi was just firm. You've taken away a precious life, destroyed a whole existence, and stolen countless memories from us.
Now, this is where the story takes one final, almost unbelievable turn. Tatsuya's attempt at atonement. I don't even know what to call it.
It's bizarre. Shortly before his trial, while he's in prison, he writes and publishes a book, a full confession.
It's called Until I Was Arrested, and it's basically his fugitive memoir.
Yeah, a detailed biography of his 2.5 years on the run. He describes the hiding places, the construction work, the self-mutilation, the surgery, all of it. A complete expose.
And the book was a huge commercial success. It sold over 100,000 copies. But then came the truly astonishing offer.
He announced that he would offer all the royalties and profits from the book to Lindsay's family, presented as this strange posthumous reparation.
And you have to analyze that. Was this a genuine attempt at remorse, or was it purely self-serving? A final attempt to profit from the notoriety of his own crime, but just dressed up as atonement.
The family provided the definitive answer. They swiftly and firmly rejected the offer.
Their response was so clear and powerful. They said no amount of money or strange good deeds from publishing his crime could ever bring their daughter back. They just reiterated the core tragedy. Lindsay was bright, cheerful, had her whole life ahead of her, and she was lost during this incredible experience abroad, simply because an act of kindness was tragically used against her.
So what does this all mean? We've covered this incredibly complex case. You have personal tragedy, a catastrophic lapse by law enforcement, and this psychological thriller defined by a killer's shocking dedication to erasing his own identity.
It really highlighted the difficulty of a transnational manhunt and also the deep cultural and jurisdictional challenges the Hawker family faced trying to get justice so far from home.
The resources poured into this, the public pressure, and the sheer audacity of Ichihashi's attempts to evade capture by literally cutting away his own features. It makes this an enduring study in criminal desperation.
He used that discipline, which should have been directed towards, a successful life, and he directed it all towards self-preservation through this calculated evasion.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the case really stands as this stark example of the intense psychological pressure required to sustain a fugitive existence. He used the anonymity of modern society and the physical landscape of Japan to endure for years.
Which brings up a final question for you, the listener, to really consider. It's about the dichotomy of his behavior. He spends 2 years meticulously altering his physical identity, crossing the nation, showing this extraordinary will to survive. Yet the moment he's cornered at that ferry port, he just willingly and immediately confesses his name.
And then, after he's caught, he tries to profit from his crime with a book, offering the money as some kind of atonement. What does that massive gap between the survival instinct and the ultimate surrender, and that strange attempt to commercialize it all? What does that tell us about the psychological toll of life on the run, and whether true anonymity is ever really possible against the internal pressure of guilt? That's a thought we'll leave with you.
This was all for today. Stay happy, stay safe, comment your views down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you next time with another story in Deep Dive.